Hello and welcome. This audio recording is designed for students sitting the CIE IGCSE History exam, and we'll go over a question that may be found on a Part C on Paper 1. You might find it useful to have a pen and paper to hand, or you might just want to listen through as part of your revision. That's okay too. Many of you will now be familiar with what us history teachers call the PEE technique. That is to say, make a point, back it up with evidence in the form of names, dates, statistics, quotations, people, places and events, and then explain. Phrases such as "this shows" or "this suggests" are helpful in achieving this. And better answers will often give more than one layer of explanation. We call this PEE 2.0 because you're doing it twice. So in this response, we will use the PEE formula. Okay, let's get started. Today's question is, what were the causes of the Iran-Iraq war? And we will break this up into a 5-part scope. Now, bear in mind, any Part C question on Paper 1 will always be worth 10 marks and will always offer you a statement and ask you the question, how far do you agree? So, this question could come up in the format of, the Iran-Iraq war was Saddam Hussein's fault, how far do you agree? Or, historical reasons were the main factor for the Iran-Iraq war, how far do you agree? And you would be expected to answer the question by showing two sides of an argument and giving a 4-4 split, for and against, using the magic words on the other hand. But in the interests of being thorough and comprehensive, this question will tackle the whole thing head on. So, what were the causes of the Iran-Iraq war? Point 1. Historical reasons. Evidence to support this might include: the Iran-Iraq war can be regarded as part of an age-old contest for power and dominance in the Middle East between the Persians and the Arabs. And this contest had its origins in the ancient civilizations of Persia and Mesopotamia. Moreover, arguments over shipping rights to Shatt al-Arab and the precise location of the Iraq-Iran border along the southern 105-kilometre stretch of the river had been ongoing since the 16th century, so this was not a new phenomenon. More recently, in 1937, a treaty was made between the two countries, but it was very favourable towards Iraq, and the boundary of Shatt al-Arab was to be marked by the low water mark on the eastern bank of the river. In 1969, when the Shah of Iran rejected the 1937 Shatt al-Arab Treaty, he refused to pay any further shipping tolls to the Iraqis, and this caused much tension. Finally, Iran and Iraq shared a border of more than 1,400 kilometres. And so, in explaining this point, you may wish to argue that this historic evidence suggests that there was a long-term grievance between the two countries and that this was a cause of the Iran-Iraq war. Point 2. Demographic reasons. Demography is a geographical term to describe the people and the religions and ethnic groups in any given country. Evidence to support this includes: most of the non-Persians in the southwestern Iranian province of Khuzestan were Arabs who had cultural connections with their Iraqi neighbour to the west. Saddam claimed a historical right to control the province of Khuzestan, and he encouraged the Arabs living there to revolt against the Shah's rule. Iran was a Shiite Muslim state, governed by leading Muslim clerics according to Muslim law, and by contrast, Iraq was a secular state, and most of its leading politicians were Sunni Muslims, even though Sunni Muslims made up less than 20% of the overall Iraqi population. And so in explaining this point, this suggests that demographic reasons and intertensions between each nation were a key factor in bringing about the Iran-Iraq War. Point 3. Ayatollah Khamenei's fault. Evidence to support this includes: the Ayatollah still felt bitter about his expulsion from Iraq in 1977, and from June 1979 he began appealing to Iraqi Shiites to overthrow the Ba'ath regime and establish another Islamic republic, like he had in Iran. Iran began encouraging the Kurds in the north of Iraq in particular to take up arms against Saddam's regime, and provided them with training bases and military equipment. And our final piece of evidence to support this point includes: Iran possessed the 5th most powerful army in the world, and so there is a whole range of evidence that suggests it could be the Ayatollah and Iran who were to blame. Point 4. Saddam Hussein's fault. Evidence to support this includes: the Islamic Revolution of 1979 seemed to provide a temporary change in the power balance, and this was an opportunity that Saddam was keen to exploit. Moreover, shortly before invading Iran in September 1980, Saddam had renounced the Algiers Agreement. And by invading Iran, Saddam was launching a preemptive strike. He wanted to destroy Khamenei before Khamenei destroyed him. And so it can be argued, in explaining this point, that Saddam Hussein was the undoubted aggressor to many because it was he who invaded Iran, not the other way around. Finally, point 5. The fault of other nations. Evidence to support this includes: the United States did not have much enthusiasm for either Saddam Hussein or Khamenei, but of the two, they preferred the former. America supplied Iraq with arms, intelligence, and finance, and Britain, France, and West Germany supplied military equipment to Iraq, and so it could be argued that the USA and their allies were a contributing factor to the start of the Iran-Iraq War also. Okay, so we've given a 5-point scope, arguing that historical reasons, demographic reasons, Ayatollah Khamenei, Saddam Hussein, and other Western nations could all be blamed for the start of the Iran-Iraq War. Okay, now it's time for our clever conclusion. Iraq's land and air invasion of Western Iran in September 1980 marked the beginning of an 8-year war, which brought destabilization to the region and devastation to the participants. Few modern conflicts have been so long, bloody, and pointless. And in answering this question, it has to be said that the causes are a mixture of long-standing disputes and more immediate considerations. This essay, however, claims that Saddam Hussein was the undoubted aggressor. He wanted to destroy Khomeini before Khomeini destroyed him. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I hope you found this useful. If you did, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Mr. Guiney History, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel for further pieces of advice. Bye bye.